Matrix and Neo and an army of robots? Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about that. And the UK budget, we're going to talk about that. Today's UK budget day, and they're going to increase the taxes on people, and people are not happy about that. There's a whole bunch of things that the UK government are doing that people aren't happy about. And there's a controversy over the murdered school children that sparked the riots that had Keir Starmer throw people in jail. And it turns out that the people who were protesting were right, I guess. And so there's even more anger, and people are saying these people are done. They need to be ousted. And well, I don't think that's not part of the plan. It would be like saying Justin Trudeau's got to go. And of course, Justin Trudeau does have to go, but it's been years, and well, we've known that, right? And we haven't been able to actually oust him. So I fear the UK is being set up to have the same thing happen to them. Maybe minus the Chinese infiltration, but maybe China's just as involved there as they are here. The BC election is final, confirmed, stolen, I think. And Mary Ng plays the victim, saying, I can't believe that anybody would give Kevin Vuong a platform, and he should not be talked about, and he should not be listened to, and I'm not gonna step down or anything like that. But this is egregious that he's said all these things. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Paul says, destroyed from within. Canada's being destroyed. America is being destroyed. The United Kingdom's being destroyed. Germany's being destroyed. France is being destroyed. Collectively, the West is being destroyed. It's almost as if there's a pattern here. If only we could figure it out. Oh my gosh. And part of the pattern is having a close election and then having the person who won the election concede to the person who cheated. That's part of the plan, part of the system. And well, I mean, I'm sick and tired of it. It's ridiculous. And yesterday we're watching all of this roll out, but at the same time, people are asking questions like, how can Canadians be assured that our election process is above board if we can't even get the names of Chinese traitors in our government, Mr. EB? Right? So here's Kevin Vuong and Jared highlighting this. MP Vuong on foreign interference in Parliament. How can Canada have an election if Canadians don't know whether the people they're voting for have their best interests at heart? And he says a little bit more than that, but I'll let him say it. Here we go.
We're here today to address a question that all Canadians have been asking. Who are the parliamentarians who have been identified in a confidential report by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians? In their special report, paragraph 164 states that NSICOP has, quote, seen troubling intelligence that some parliamentarians are, in the words of the intelligence services, semi-witting or witting participants in the efforts of foreign states to interfere in our politics, end quote. How can Canada have an election if Canadians don't know whether the people they're voting for has their best interests at heart or if they're serving a foreign master? We're here today to address a question.
And I mean, if you even ask that question, you get attacked, right? If you even bring up, we've got evidence to that end, you get attacked. Here's gov.exe is corrupt, says, watch, David Eby congratulates himself and thanks the people of British Columbia for allowing the NDP to form government when he should be thanking China, given that his name was mentioned in yesterday's foreign interference briefing. The BC election was illegitimate and Eby should be investigated. I think that that's very, very true. Here's Andy Lee. She says, Dave Eby's non-political advisor and head of the Canadian Community Service Association, CCSA, Nia Ho, was the chosen one in 2023, being invited to government meetings with Xi Jinping. Parm Baines rang in the new year with him. It's worse than you can imagine. So Andy Lee's done digs on all of this, but Liberal Parm Baines rings in the new year with CCSA President Nia Ho, who has met Xi Jinping and Consul General Han To. The event is broadcast across China over FX 168. News, Baines defeated Conservative Kenny Chiu in 2021. Chiu lost after introducing foreign agent legislation. And so Brittany's saying like, whoa, what's going on here? And Vivek says, another advisor for Dave Eby has emerged, Nia Hu, the president of the Canadian Community Service Association, CCSA, and she's a United Front worker. And Andy Lee is tagged in all of this, but this is more digs. But Dave Eby met with Ding Go before the election, promising to establish a Chinese cultural center with government funding convenient for Chinese associations leaders gatherings. So there you go. I mean, tit for tat, right? I scratch your back, you scratch my back, and everybody gets a province to run, right? China gets a province to run. Danielle Smith solidifies this win by legitimizing it with congratulations. Danielle Smith says, congratulations to Premier Dave Eby and his NDP team on their re-election in British Columbia. I look forward to continuing our important work together to make sure Western Canada's voice is heard loud and clear in Ottawa. I'd also like to extend my congratulations to John Rustad and the BC Conservatives as the new official opposition. A strong opposition is essential to good governance, and I look forward to seeing their contributions in the years ahead. There's a lot wrong with what's going on here, but if I just read a report talking about how deep in Dave Eby was to Chinese, whether witting or unwitting, infiltration, I wouldn't be sending congratulations for your hard-won election. It looks like Hammer scorecard. It looks like foreign interference. There's no way that this is above board with all of the election offices closing because of rain, phone-in votes, mail-in ballots, and all of the rest. There's no way. I'm not convinced, and I don't understand how these people can be convinced. They're supposed to be smart, right? Like, honestly, they're supposed to be smart. Spycraft says, congratulations for what? He's responding to Danielle Smith. And he says, congratulations for what? Blatantly rigging an outcome? Just like your comms people plan to bring 2,000 Muslims to the AGM to try and keep you in your job. No better than the socialists you profess to be against. Just another lip service. Kenny, you do your best. You'd be best to remember who got you in your job in the first place. November 5th is coming real soon. I can't remember if the UCP AGM, the annual general meeting, is on November 5th. If it is, I mean, really, like the US elections on that day? I mean, I guess you might as well chat politics about Canada. I will be. Anyway, regardless. So isn't that interesting though? Like, what's your game, Danielle Smith? I don't get it. I mean, I do get it, but it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing. Laurie Goldstein, he could see it from Ontario. Danielle Smith can't quite see it. And it's so flat out there, right? After 2 years of unfolding massive foreign interference scandal in Canada, we have no idea who's involved, no idea of what actions have been taken against them, if any, no idea who has been falsely accused, and no idea of who should have been accused and hasn't been. Well, I've got a list. I've got some people that should probably be on the short list for the RCMP to be investigating, but it also seems like the RCMP are not interested in investigating at all whatsoever, anything at all. If you do a shooting and you dress up like the RCMP and you have a replica RCMP cruiser and you're very, very unstable, they just want to leave you alone until you shoot up a whole bunch of people in Nova Scotia. And then they would really rather everybody just go away and stop asking questions about it, right? I haven't seen any kind of investigative chops, any kind of anything from the RCMP that makes me think that they're going to do anything about anything, period, at all, unless somebody gets close to exposing Justin Trudeau and his ties to foreign interference, or Justin Trudeau and his ties to whatever, or the sitting government and their ties to impropriety. Then the RCMP are going to make sure that those Coots boys stay in that jail cell forever, right? Like, that's the kind of bullshit that I think that we're under right now. And why would you have any faith in these institutions after what they've done to us? Honestly, I can't come up with a good argument. Mary Ing says, it's unfortunate that Mr. Vung recently gave Sam Cooper another platform to make insinuations about me, which I categorically reject. Foreign interference is a serious matter. So instead of dealing with the allegations as if they're serious, she is going after the credibility of Vung and Cooper. Right. And so, like, Sam Cooper is a credible journalist. He worked at Global News until all of the journalist outlets that were formerly respectable got purchased by the government. And then Cooper couldn't stay, I guess, and then left. Maybe he likes Global News still. I don't know. But none of the news agencies that we have in Canada that are institutions that are taking any money from the government are being honest. Right. So, like, people like Cooper, he seems honest. He seems long in the tooth. He seems experienced. He seems to know what he's talking about. They can't stay because when they bring a story that's like fire to their editor and the editor says, we're going to sit on it, he's like, we have to publish this now because there's an election going on. We have to publish this now because, you know, people are being improperly informed about whatever it is, right? And the editor says, yeah, well, the people who pay your salaries say nobody's to hear about this. So sorry, man. How about you work on this dog show, right? Like, they have to leave, and so it makes it easy to attack their credibility. Kevin Vung, he was a liberal, and then he got attacked as being having sexual impropriety, or there was some kind of impropriety around his behavior, and he was removed from the Liberal caucus because of his anti-CCP stance, right? And so he has now had his credibility attacked, and instead of Mary Ing addressing the actual allegations, she says these people are not credible. It's genius because it works so friggin' well, right? And a conservative will deal with the allegation, right? If somebody says, you did blah, and the conservative will say, no, I didn't. You don't have evidence. I didn't do any of that. I wouldn't engage in that, blah, 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 blah. Whereas the liberal will attack the other person and say, you don't have any credibility, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't address the actual issue at all, which is interesting. It's an interesting behavioral difference to note. Anyway, carrying on after the attack on their character and their person, Mary Ng continues, foreign interference is a serious matter of national security, and like all my cabinet colleagues, pivot, I've been thoroughly screened by the top security experts in Canada. My work in the service of Canada stands on its own merits, while Mr. Cooper's conspiracy theories have been pushed from the main pages of global news to the only place that will publish them, his own website. All right, see, there you go, attacking the credibility. It's not okay for him to continue fueling this climate of suspicion against me. Well, as Ron Burgundy says, I don't believe you, right? Nobody believes you. Kevin Vung responds, and he says there's an easy solution to clear the air. Release the names. Also, there's a reason why you chose to reject instead of simply and directly stating that the insinuations were categorically false. If they were indeed false, Canadians have had enough with word games. And, well, that's all the liberals play, right? That's the liberal tap dance. Word games are what they do, right? That's exactly what they do. Rob Logan is responding to Mary Ng. He says, it's unfortunate for you, Mary, but let's be honest, you should not be sitting in the House of Commons. You are a Chinese compromised MP. Please do the honorable thing and resign. Mm-hmm. Yep. Canada Proud says, instead of responding to the substance of the allegations, Ng just threw insults and said the journalist investigating her shouldn't be allowed to keep writing. Mary Ng responds to allegations by journalist Sam Cooper that she was used by China in a foreign influence operation by accusing him of pushing conspiracy theories, making fun of him for losing his previous job, declaring that it's not okay for him to continue fueling his climate of suspicion. I thought, and as far as I understood it, and I mean, I am not a journalist and I am not playing in their pool. So I'm not competing with these people. That's their job. This is my hobby. Okay. It's a very different thing in my opinion. And so I'm not like, oh man, that Sam Cooper guy, right? This is fun for me. And Sam Cooper does it as a job. So my understanding, and I'm not looking at I'm not Rachel, what's her name? Rachel Gilmore. I was going to say Rachel Cooper. No, Rachel Gilmore. I'm not Rachel Gilmore and I'm not applying to anybody for jobs or anything like that. I'll collaborate with people. Love to collaborate. Let's do a video together. But I'm not working for anybody else to do this, and I'm not applying for jobs or anything like that. And my understanding, so I'm not in that field, to be very clear. But my understanding was that Cooper left Global of his own accord because of the reasons I said earlier, that he was being systemically prevented from breaking big stories because of the purchasing of the media by the government. Nothing else. And making fun of somebody for that, that's a badge of honor, yo. So honestly, we've been watching Married with Children. It's ridiculously funny. And it's ridiculous. There are some jokes that miss, but there are some jokes that are wow, man. I was, I don't know, probably 10 or 11 when I was watching that. I can't remember why I thought of that. Hold on. The difference between then and what was acceptable to say on television and now and what's acceptable to say in private now versus what was acceptable to say in public then is stark and just unbelievable. We were watching Married with Children because I have all of the Roseanne and Married with Children Thanksgiving and Halloween and Christmas specials tagged just to watch whenever, the mood strikes. And it's almost, well, it's not American Thanksgiving, is it? But we were watching the Roseanne American Thanksgiving, and then we watched the Bundy Thanksgiving to follow it up. And the jokes were so they were funny, but it was a whole other world of unbelievable stuff. And so it was striking what you're allowed to talk about now and the way you're allowed to talk about things now versus the way you were talking about things then. And it was a Crass Fox show, but there are no Crass Fox shows now, right? A Crass Fox show is not having a disabled minority person as the main focus of the show, as the hero of the show. It's ridiculous. Okay, moving back to China and the interference, Tom Mazzaro is responding to Mary Ng. He says, it's staggering that a federal judge, CSIS, and the RCMP have known for months, even years, that a federal cabinet minister has been under foreign interference, yet nothing has been done. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Dave Eby's been reelected, and everybody's congratulations, Dave Eby. Can't wait to work with you. Are we building a Chinese cultural center together? Yay. Meanwhile, the Coots men, back to Tom, who dared to stage or to stand against the iron grip of a tyrannical government have had their lives shattered by the full unforgiving force of the RCMP. See, this is why I don't trust the RCMP. And a judicial system that seems to serve political powers over justice. These men took a stand because the federal and provincial governments blatantly violated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Let's be clear, the rule of law in Canada is dead when justice is only applied to crush dissenters while those in power go untouched. We no longer live in a free society. The Canadian government is illegitimate and has turned against the very people it was meant to serve. If it weren't for the recent elections in British Columbia, New Brunswick, and Saskatchewan, there might still be a glimmer of hope. But after seeing this lawlessness unchecked, it's hard to believe that most Canadian voters will find the courage to join those few of us who are truly fighting for this country. It's clear that some of us will continue to stand up for Canada, even as most of us will not. Nothing will change here until the reality of breadlines and lost freedoms hits home. Don't look to the U.S. to get involved. They can't because they have their own problems. Brace yourself, Canada. A true test of courage and convictions lies ahead. Well, we'll talk about the U.S. at the end of the show. But yeah, if the proverbial shit hits the fan, the U.S. isn't going to be feeding Canada because of their own goodwill. Like, that's just not going to happen. So, and breadlines and starvation and all of the rest of that stuff seems like a distant something that you can't touch, or something that can't touch us, right? But I think that's arrogant. Look at what's happened in the last few years. It's like saying they won't lock down Canada while they're importing people from China who were supposedly sick and flu season's coming, right? They were trying to lock down Canada during summer, right? And wear masks. Don't forget to wear masks at the beach, you people, right? So like, they're not above lying. They'll do and say anything to get their way. It's wild. Kevin Vung again says, why is the Trudeau government dragging its feet? Why are they protecting people harming Canada and our democracy? Reluctance is abetting. So their hesitation to do something is abetting these crimes against the country. I think that I agree with him. If foreign interference had permeated elected officials in the United States Congress and Senate, a special prosecutor would be appointed within minutes. I don't think that's true. I think we've been watching a 4-year sting. I think we've been watching currently a 4-year sting underway, and I think Trump's ready to snap the trap shut, if you will. He's been warning that anybody who engages in electoral interference is going to be dealt with to the full extent of the law, and there's all sorts of little hints here and there. Again, I don't know. Who knows? I'd love to. We're going to be here to see it. So like, I could be wrong and I'll still be satisfied that I watched what happened. And then, I mean, like, I watched what happened with the British Columbia election. Not satisfied. I was here to watch it. Still not satisfied. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's no real, it's like watching Game of Thrones. And I mean, we did find out who Jon Snow's mother was and all the rest of that stuff. But I thought at the beginning of this, because I knew I watched Game of Thrones knowing that George R.R. Martin hadn't finished the series yet. And as soon as, what's his name, Ned had said to Jon Snow, like, listen, when I come back from Winterfell, or not from Winterfell, from wherever it is, the capital, I can't remember what his name, I'll tell you about your mother. And I was like, and then he dies. I'm like, we're never going to hear about his mother. That whole thing's gone. That, like, George Martin's going to die. He's still not dead, right? He's still alive. But Winds of Winter was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Anyway, it was like that. I thought, we're never going to hear about this. And I feel like that all the time with our Canadian politics. We're never going to get satisfied. We're never going to have a satisfactory conclusion to this story. It's just going to be like that hanging thing that you're always wondering about, like, oh man, I wonder how many people in that parliament were Chinese assets that screwed us over completely, right? And so that's terrible. Arif Varini, our foreign minister, our attorney general and justice minister, not foreign minister, says, get the clearance, take the briefing, protect the country. It's that simple, Pierre. And it's so dishonest that these people have transformed this thing that is impacting all Canadians, and we're having negative outcomes from it, into Pierre Poilievre didn't get his security clearance and he's putting Canadians at risk by not getting a security clearance. That's the message they're trying to send. And that's the only thing they're going to continue doing and saying, and we're just going to have to deal with it, right? Like, Stephen Harper talking about the elections. Stephen Harper congratulates not Dave Eby, he congratulates Premier Scott Moe. He says, congratulations to my friend Scott Moe on leading the Saskatchewan party to a remarkable 5th consecutive majority government victory. This is a tremendous legacy of accomplishment for the Premier, his team, and their common sense agenda that will continue delivering competent pro-growth government for the people of Saskatchewan. So Stephen Harper's weighing in on, do you think the Saskatchewan election is above board? I mean, it's not 10 days later. And I mean, we had the election result that night, and it seems like above board to me, but is there something wrong with it? As far as I understand it, it was hand counted. And I mean, everybody seems happy with the result. I haven't heard people screaming about rigged Saskatchewan election at this point. Yves Francois Blanchette's ready for an election. Holly Doan's reporting, absolutely ready to go into an election tomorrow morning. Bloc Québécois leader Blanchette says 33 members caucus will join 119 conservatives in supporting next Commons no confidence vote. So somebody said all we need is 24 liberals to abstain from voting. Wasn't that the number? 24 liberals? Wasn't that the number that people were saying were disaffected, upset, and had no real recourse? So are they going to force an election? Sheila Gunn Reid says Liberal Housing Minister Sean Fraser calls the Freedom Convoy the January 6th of Canada. It's silly. The rhetoric he's pushing is dumb. They're creating a false reality. I don't know how else to put it. Like, this is fake. What he's talking about is fake. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, I sometimes ask myself where they found this guy. He twists the facts to suit his narrative whenever he wants. It's almost like the Conservative Party, when looking for a new leader, hopped on Temu, typed in far-right conservative, and then spit the...
This is a weak, this line is a weak attack. They went on an attack against Poilievre 2 weeks ago, calling him, he's been yabbering on in the House of Commons for 20 years. So undermining his experience as an MP, an elected MP for 20 years. They went on an attack saying he's been, Jagmeet Singh did, saying he's been, benefiting from free healthcare from the House of Commons for all this time. But he worked for those benefits. So all of this is absolutely not desperate necessarily, but throwing whatever at the wall to see what sticks. Looking on Temu, do Canadians use Temu? Is he trying to promote this thing? What is he even talking about? And he sounds drunk.
This guy out instead. He opposes investments in affordable housing. He borrows lessons from his cousin south of the border when he opposes birth control for women. During the January 6th of Canada, the convoy, he wasn't just telling people to stand by, he was bringing them coffee in the streets. Mr. Speaker, it might be election season in America. We don't need this far right-wing populism here at home.
The Honourable... Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of leadership contestants, that member must be so uptight and angry because the polling shows that though Canadians want to fire that Prime Minister, the Housing Minister ranks dead last in the polls to replace him. And why wouldn't he? This is the guy who lost track of 1 million people when he was Immigration Minister. Right. He ignored warnings from his own department that letting in 200% more people would cause a housing shortage. And his own government spent the last week trashing his entire immigration record. How can arrogance and incompetence so comfortably reside in one man?
Yeah! Insults, right? Poilievre's insults made sense. Fraser's insults, big miss. Like that scene in Hook, right, where Banger rang Rufio and then Peter's trying to insult him and fails. Okay. Cat Canada says, Poilievre, since Sean Fraser gave Toronto $500 million, the city has jacked up development taxes by 40%. Fraser, Temu, far right, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's the rhetoric coming from the Liberals. Again, not desperate exactly, but nothing's really resonating. But they're pretending that it's really resonating. They're pretending that what they're saying is being heard and repeated by people. But the fact that they keep coming up with new attack lines, it's not. And they're really bad at testing as well. Sometimes Poilievre will test live. So comedians will test new sets. Artists like singers and songwriters and things will test new songs. I remember at Edgefest, probably Our Lady Peace played Thief for the first time at Edgefest 98, I think. And it was cool. And I like the song right away. So they'll test things and see how the crowd reacts, right? And people will either react well or they won't. And then they roll it out more broadly and they'll test it as a lot. I've shown you examples of conservatives using that kind of system, testing different, testing the apples thing, testing a whole bunch of different slogans, and they center in on ones that work, and then they use that more, and then they double and triple down on it to the point where you almost get sick of it, right? Axe the tax, bring it home, all that crap. That's what they do, and these guys don't have any of that because all of their rhetoric is garbage. All of their rhetoric is crap, right? Like, and that's it. This guy, he's so bad. Declue, he was the health minister. I don't think he's still the health minister, but Ryan says, this is propaganda and misinformation. Attacks will not stop any storms, floods, droughts, or forest fires. To think that they're fooling people still with this garbage. They're not. They're just trying to maintain that created reality. And if they don't respond to that created reality as if it's real, then nobody will, because we're not. Like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. If we stop spraying the skies and using the HARP, which is at the end of today's show we'll talk about, we'd have our weather back. We'd have our normal weather back. These people are doing this on purpose to us, honestly. Like, and this is, when I say that, that's why my show doesn't have a broader reach. That's why. That right there. Anyway, Canada Proud says, moving on, let's talk about money and wasted money. The next section's the super fun section. I hope we get to it. We're going to get to it. Anyway, Canada Proud says the Canadian dollar has reached its lowest value relative to the US dollar in over 2 decades, with the loonie now standing at just 72 cents on the US dollar. I remember 64-cent Canadian dollar. Like, I lived through 64-cent Canadian dollar. We went down to the States during a 64-cent Canadian dollar. My parents were super pissed about that because they were like, well, the gas is kind of cheaper, but also the same price. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, it looks like it's cheaper on the signs and things like that, but then we have to pay for it in Canadian dollars because that's what we earn, and the exchange makes it about the same. And so I understand now, right? Terrible, awful, 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 but that's happening. So Market Mania says Canadian dollar drops to 4-year low against the US dollar. Wah wah. Not good. Not good. Holly Doan says execs at the Bank of Canada acknowledge many Canadians remain beaten down by the cost of living despite earlier celebrations that inflation had cooled. People feel like things are more expensive than they are. Well, like, no. I was at a grocery store yesterday and I was looking at hot dogs because my kids like hot dogs and I like hot dogs. And like big juicy jumbos, that's one price. They've doubled in price, by the way. And the little ones have kind of retained their $3, $4 price point, right? Until recently, now they're $6 and $7. Bacon's $7, right? It used to be $3, $2.99 for bacon. Now it's $5.99, $6.99, right? On sale for $3.50, $4. But these hot dogs, now there's 10 of them, not 12 of them, and they're double the price, right? And it's like, it used to be $3.99 for 12 hot dogs because it's like hot dogs, right? Like, and now $7 for 10 instead of $3 for 12. So not great. And yeah, I'm not happy with that. But this is the inflationary stuff that happens when your currency is devalued. Do you have your Bitcoin? And your buying power's erased, basically. The food professors talking about shrinkflation on steroids for Halloween. Just one M&M in a bag. It's all weight. Right? It's all a weight thing. So there's a robot doing weights. And if one M&M is particularly heavy, a peanut is particularly dense, well, you only get one. Thank you very much. Andrew says Brent crude, which is I think it's the UK crude, has fallen to a rather low $71 a barrel, but the government is still taxing North Sea operators on the basis that they're making windfall profits. They will wreck the country. That's the point. They want to bankrupt the oil and gas, saying that we're fighting climate change, but all they're doing is destroying the country. This guy's saying that Ford Motors is losing $58,000 per EVs, and they've lost $11 billion on EVs. How could such a storied company make such a colossal blunder? So it's 3 minutes, but basically that's what he lays out. And he lays it out. He's like, these people have like lots of people paid lots of money to research what people want to buy in vehicles. And what people want to buy in vehicles is not electric cars. And so they've built a whole bunch of electric cars and they can't damn well sell them. So they've lost $11 billion. There you go. Let's talk about the NWO and Terminator. The end of this is the scariest. Like, honestly, this is the scariest Halloween story you're going to hear today, the day before Halloween. Pierre Poilievre says, news report says the Trudeau government, bureaucrats, not even the government itself, just the bureaucrats underneath the government, are quietly looking at bringing forward a digital ID for Canadians. Common sense conservatives will ban mandatory digital ID. Mandatory digital ID. So they're going to bring in digital ID. They just won't make it mandatory. Right. And so when it's not mandatory, but like it's a giant pain, well, you could use your digital ID. Or you could go home, get a self-addressed envelope, mail the self-addressed envelope. And when the envelope gets here, then we'll process your whatever it is. Right. No digital ID. That's the process. So it'll be completely ridiculous and it will force everybody onto a digital ID, but it won't be mandatory. Right. The mandatory is the important word. Polyev says, we're going to protect you with our non-mandatory digital ID. Don't you worry, citizen. Blacklocks again says federal SSC, so this is the Federal Shared Services Canada, disclosed works underway on digital credentials for the general public through successive parliamentary committees have rejected national digital ID as risky and expensive. Yet, well, they're going to force us onto it. So here is the step one of our Terminator story today. Digital ID is step one, but it's a soft step one. People don't understand how digital ID goes to a full-blown surveillance state, right? But it's a short jump. But the jump is about the same, I think, from these to hunter-killers from Terminator. But this looks like a precursor to the Terminator HKs, the aerial HKs that come in and like, boop, boop, I'm going to get you. Here's the drones they've got active. I think these are already probably active. Skydia. Okay, Skydia is the brand, it looks like. Here we go.
Skydio dock for X-10. Station docked X-10s where critical work happens. Get airborne in 20 seconds. Operate remotely from anywhere in the world and get the data you need to act. For public safety agencies, Skydio DFR Command is the ultimate software suite for drone operations. Respond to incidents with a single click, share live video with ReadyLink, and use augmented reality overlays for precise visual orientation. Manage your fleet, upload evidence, and build community trust. It's all at your command.
I would like to have 10 of these to build community trust. Sorry, Mark, you can't own these. Sounds a lot like HKs from Terminator. Here's the Terminator HKs from Infinity Sci-Fi. I thought this was all right.
The aerial HK is a large airborne hunter-killer with vertical takeoff and landing capability, built and controlled by Skynet and made to patrol the wastelands of the future war, operating in support of ground units and to eliminate human resistance fighters. The aerial hunter-killer is around the size of a small jet aircraft with a flat, slender fuselage and twin vertical stabilizers. It features twin spotlights located on the nose to locate and highlight enemies. For propulsion, it has a pair of wing-mounted high-bypass turbine engines located inside pods at the end of each wing.
It looks a lot like the drone thing that I just showed you. I mean, not exactly like that, but you could see a generational kind of similarity there. You know, like it's not exactly the same, but take it off. If you just add some lights and maybe some guns on its head, like, what do you mean birds aren't real? You've got an HK, okay? And so Skynet, the whatchamacallits, the Skydias work for Skynet, and it's not like we're building Skynet or anything like that. So we should be not worried about it. Hold on. Here's from that interview last year where they're talking about building Skynet.
$1 billion, part of which is from a state-run VC fund. But the name chosen for its premier piece of technology is a bit of a tell.
Skynet.
Skynet. What is that?
The Terminator is the favorite film of our founder. So they use the same name, but they want to put something good into this system.
So, okay, in the Terminator, Skynet is evil, rains down death from the sky. But in China, Skynet is good.
Yeah, that's the difference.
So how do you think your facial recognition technology will change China?
Everything happens.
Yes. In fiction, Skynet is bad. But in China, Skynet is good. Don't believe your eyes, just believe what we tell you, please. Here's the woman who wrote Terminator and The Matrix. Okay, so digital ID is used by Skynet to monitor humans, Skynet good. And in Terminator, the HKs hunt humans to kill them. So, I mean, maybe Skynet good, Skynet bad. Watch this. This is crazy. You've probably watched it. It's just a minute long, but it kind of ties it all together.
Learn today. Listen to the woman who wrote The Matrix and the Terminator.
Well, that's what The Matrix is about, to wake you up from The Matrix, to get you out of the illusions and the lies and the ignorance. So it's not dangerous for me because that's my job. That's what I came here to do. That's why I wrote The Matrix and Terminator, to wake people up so they can move on to greater, better things. Yeah, but the Terminator is the prequels to or the beginning of the Matrix. Sarah Connor is actually Neo's mother. So JC, John Connor's Jesus Christ, grows up to be Neo, one and the same in the Matrix. The Matrix is in the future. The Terminator is the past. It's time travel, past, present, and future time travel. It's the second coming of the Christ, the evolutions of consciousness, man versus the machine. So the machines, the Terminator machines, hear that a child is going to be born that's going to terminate them in the future when they oppress man. So see, it's a man versus the machine. It's God's children versus man's children, which was technology.
Does that resonate? I read that or heard that. I was like, holy smoke. Man versus the machine. And the piece de resistance, the cherry on top, Elon Musk says by 2040, there will be at least 10 billion humanoid robots priced around $20,000 to $25,000. I'm sure it's fine. These don't look anything like Terminators at all. That's not concerning. So Skynet good, right? No problem. Here's your Terminator bot. I mean, here's your Butler bot. And, don't ask questions. Why? What's that thing on its head? You don't want to know. And if you ask a question, that's illegal and you'll go to the gulag. Dave, I'm worried about this, honestly. But it's so, oh my gosh, it's so crazy that but man versus machine, the whole, we're setting it up right now. The hunter killers and everything. Right? The hunter killers, we started with the hunter killers and we ended with the T-800. And still people are like, I'd really like one of those T-800s, please. Can he look like Arnold? Dave, let's talk. Oh, our grab bag of governance has one thing today, but we've got one. So anyway, grab bag of governance. Dave says a proposed ban on e-bikes and e-scooters on Toronto's public transit system has been put on hold until the TTC staff have determined how such a move would impact gig workers as well as racialized and lower income riders. The reason they wanted to ban it is because they inconveniently blew up. Right? There was a video on TTC, maybe it wasn't TTC, it might have been New York, but there was one of these e-scooters on inside of the train in the subway. And so the train pulled into the station and the doors opened and the scooter came flying out of the doors because it was on fire and people were concerned that maybe the train would be lit on fire, right? And so TTC, we've got to think about public safety. What's the impact on racialized and lower income people? Because, we need to be able to enable them to carry these dangerous things around. Yesterday or recently, I heard from somebody who works at the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. This kind of is grab bag of governance, but it stands on its own. Instead of doing PA or PD, professional development, and professional development when I was working in school boards was almost always, I worked with children's mental health. I worked with the spec ed team, right? So almost always the in-services were about how to deal with autistic children because, well, we can get into that later, but autistic children were almost the only thing that you could get that would get support. And so all of the in-services were about how to deal with autistic kids. Figure that one out. And they were all really dry and they were really, I don't think they actually helped at all. But now, instead of pretending that they're about education for professional development, the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board is going all in on ideological and indoctrination training for the teachers. So tomorrow, or not tomorrow, the November 1st, Friday, November 1st, the PD day for Hamilton Wentworth is going to be looking at Islamophobia, anti-Muslim racism, and anti-Palestinian racism. So this is an important thing that teachers need to shove down the throats of children at school. Now, I don't know if this is a high school or if this is a elementary school that are doing this, because sometimes high schools and elementary schools have different PA day schedules because the teachers are being taught different things. So I don't know if that's what's going on, but, oh, okay. No, look at this. Ha, look, it actually says it. I didn't even see that right there, but the secondary, okay, so elementary is doing it and so is secondary. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's worse than you think. They're doing it for everybody. Kindergartens too. And we're not done yet. February is anti-Semitism training. So Islamophobia training, anti-Semitism training, all to be racist and hateful against Canadians. So you're welcome, Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. If you don't want your money going to this, well, I don't know what to tell you, because that's what it's going towards. Unfortunately, they're wasting our money on this crap, and they're doing it to bankrupt the country. It seems they're going to spend enough money on woke to bankrupt the country. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful